Hey gang, we're talking today about the Spyderco Sage 5. So this is another in the Sage series, the most recent. The Sage series is all about the locks, man. So you got from the Michael Walker liner lock in the Sage 1, the Reeve integral lock, which is a frame lock in the Sage 2. You've got the Blackie Collins bolt action lock in the Sage 3. And then in the Sage 4, you've got the lock back, and I'm not sure who they are, or the mid-back lock. I'm not sure who they're attributing that one to. If you know, please let me know in the comments. So this is the compression lock, which, is that a Glesser design? Did the Glessers invent the compression lock? I'm not quite sure. Whoever did, they are the Sage of this model. At any rate, this is a very well-balanced everyday carry knife from Spyderco. It is almost, it's like it's a result of groupthink. It's like they've gone and got the things that the knife, they've gone and got like a cloud of all of the words that knife guys are always saying and then put them together and made a knife out of it. It seems to be like they're really going for the right kind of combo of clip and blade and grind and, you know, everything, and lock and handle material, forward finger choil. They're really sort of going all out and making what is really one of the most balanced and crowd-pleasing, I would imagine, everyday carry knives currently going. Let's look at some size comparisons. This is very much in your EDC size, the 3-inch blade. Let's roll in the Delica. See, the Delica is pretty much the same size. Has a slightly longer handle and maybe a slightly shorter cutting edge. Just ever so slightly, but who knows? Well, I'm sure someone knows, but I can't quite eyeball it. But at any rate, this one is in VG10 with an FRN, and this one is in S30V with a carbon fiber laminate top over G10. So the bulk of the black, if you're looking at the handle, is G10, and then just the top layer, they use this bit of textured carbon fiber. So I guess you're getting the appearance and the feel of carbon fiber, but without the weight of, the weight reduction, and you could say the extra strength of pure carbon fiber. But then G10 is plenty strong and plenty light itself. So anyway, not the end of the world. There is internal liners as well, so it isn't just a pure G10 handle. So it does have a bit of structure to it for sure. Let's move on next to the Sage 1. No, the Sage 2 this one is. It's the Reeve integral lock Sage. Same steel, same everything pretty much. Same dimensions, pretty boring comparison. Let's look at it next to the Steel Wheel Modus. A very nice knife. Has a bit more of a, we'll go to cutting edge to cutting edge. About a 1/2 inch extra on the blade. So about a 3.5 inch blade. Handle about the same size. The thickness of the blade in the Modus is just a little bit thicker, or at least less tapered. Might be the same thickness at the start, but the Sage tapers off pretty quickly. Let's look at it next to the Kaiser T1, one of my favorites. It's Kaiser T1, just a little tiny bit bigger. Blade length, just a little tiny bit longer. Again, that next sort of size up in these scales that we look at things in. And then, of course, we've got the Opinel number one, that's tiny. Opinel number 8. A little bit longer blade, a little bit longer handle. And then you've got the Case Mini Trapper. Spade blade out. Here we go. And then the Para 3, which, fear not, will be the subject of a comparison video, probably uploaded at the same time as this one. These are very similarly sized knives. Some differences, but very much you could choose one or the other for the purpose. So, what do I like about the Spyderco Sage? Well, as I said before, they have gone all out on the things that us knife guys often say we like. So they've gone and put a full flat ground, very much Spyderco shaped blade, the leaf shaped blade on there, which we all seem to talk fondly of. Well, I'm sure many of us don't, but quite an acclaimed blade shape, I guess you could say, by most folks. Most folks, I know that's vague, but seems to be how it is. It has a pretty good plunge to it, so it is rather thin behind the edge. And it seems to be ground very, very well. So the blade, in my opinion, is a definite win. It's made of S30V steel, which we are just spoilt these days for steel. So S30V is, on a lot of people's radars, they're like, oh, it's still at S30V. I don't know, man. If you're saying, that just shows how far we've come. Powder metallurgy was to the knife blade what, Cree LEDs were to light bulbs, to incandescence. It's just we're so lucky to be in this age and have all these steals when S30V is one of the more basic ones, and we complain about it. So I got nothing wrong, nothing really bad to say about S30V. I'm pretty sure if you were to stick it into like a tree or some wood and twist it around, it might chip out on you or whatever. But if you just use like a normal knife, like for cutting things rather than chopping things or prying things, I think you'll do just fine with the S30V. I've not had an issue with it. I've had it on Benchmade and Spydercos and all sorts of knives, so all good. So overall, the blade to me is a win. It's nice and thin. It's not Delica thin, but not many knives really are. It's at about 3mm, whereas the Delica's I think 2.5. And yeah, then the Spyderco Para 3, a little bit thicker again. I think at about 3.8 or something. Not quite 4, I don't think. I'll put the specs up on the screen, actually. I'll do that at the end. I'll do specs sheet, then goods and bads at the end. So yeah, blade is definitely a win. The handle ergonomics are excellent. With one small point, but I'll get to that. Choking up on the forward finger choil position, I find when they give me a choil, this is how I default to holding a knife, and it's pretty comfortable, and it wraps, my hand wraps around the whole piece very, very well. It's a very, very sort of symmetrical choil, you see. Sometimes finger choils are like a little bit, how's the Paras? The Paras is about the same, a bit shallower though. It's deep and very symmetrical on the Sage, so it does feel like it really traps that index finger. You may like that, you may prefer it to be a little more vague, but it is definitely a usable and, in my opinion, quite a comfortable finger choil. But then, as I say, knives are a bit like shoes. They're not all going to fit every single foot, so... but I think they've gone pretty nice and generic to give everyone's hands the best shot. And hey, maybe even people's feet too. Who knows? So yeah, and then of course, pulling back like this is, it's just fine. I mean, by this point, I think that's the thing about choils. You kind of have to use them because otherwise you're starting to feel like you're using a dialing wand when your fingers are too fat to dial the phone.
The fingers you have used to dial are too fat. To obtain a special dialing wand, please mash the keypad with your palm now.
So yeah, it's fine when you pull back, but I think once they give you a choil, we're all going to hold it like this. So that's how I find it anyway. The lock is the compression lock, which is one of the best locks you can get. It's strong, some would say stronger than a liner lock because it does have this additional sort of piece that the tang of the blade and the face of the lock have to sandwich. So some would say it's stronger than a liner lock, but it operates very similar to one. The best part is you don't have to have any involvement with your fingers being in the blade channel. As I said in my Para 3 review, this is a lock that is hard to dislike. It's hard to call too much to fault with it. A bit similar to the Axis lock by Benchmade, as in being nice and safe. Although the Axis lock has some durability issues over vast amounts of time, or if you're particularly unlucky. So yeah, the compression lock is something that Spyderco really could do well to use a bit more. Mind you, it's really pushing it probably this blade size as about as small as you would want one, because it does require, for you to do all the cool one-handy shit anyway, it does require a little bit of blade weight to the blade in order to get it really sort of flicking out and back if you do want to operate your compression lock by just pinching and flicking sort of thing. Yeah, it's there's a knack to it, and you get it. This one's you're still loosening up a little bit. I've opened and closed it and used it for a few days, but still loosening up. But anyway, compression lock, great choice. The carbon fiber scales are about the way that I would like my carbon fiber. They got some texture to them. Often the worst carbon fiber is that smooth shit stuff they put on, like it's like a real shiny sticker. It just looks garbage, and it looks like it's fake, even though it's not fake. It looks fake, and it starts to peel off and fray. This is nicely blended in the G10. Even if this started to wear away, I don't think you would notice straight away. And yeah, it's just a nice effect. Yeah, it's not pure carbon fiber, but then this is, and I say only with, a touch of salt, but it's only a $210 knife. I mean, you are in Australia, it isn't super expensive. Generally, you get your pure carbon fiber on either you sacrifice in blades, so you go back down to VG10, or you pay an extra sort of, $260-ish or so in Australia. For me, as far as I've seen carbon fiber going for, by companies like Spyderco at the very least. So yeah, I'm happy with the blade texture. It feels nice. I think I prefer this to the FRN. The FRN does feel a bit plasticky to me. It feels just nice like this G10 on the Para 3. But the weave is a bit more wide. It's like this is quite a fine, like denser weave, whereas this is sort of like a light mountainous or light hilly weave. They're not rough, they're just bumpy. It's just good, it's pleasant. Moving further down the knife, they've gone and put the wire clip on it, which for carry is my favourite type of clip. Think of some other Spyderco clips. You've got the spoon style clip here with the lanyard hole in it. You've got the, here's the Para 3s, also using very similar spoon style clip, a little bit bigger, but without the lanyard hole in it. And then from other companies, you get to see, say, Kaiser uses like a sprung piece of titanium, a bit more sculpted, a bit more personalized to the knife. Steel will use this kind of like a split clip, which I think is particularly ugly, but it sort of operates quite similarly to these ones here. And then Cold Steel use their incredibly tight cold steel non-symmetrical clips that you need to swap and change two of when you get it. So yeah, it's one of the better clips going as far as what I've experienced anyway. Looks nice, looks like you've just got a pen in your pocket. It carries really, really deep. It's good. It's a really good carrying clip. However, it's interesting to note that in use, the wire clip can often cause a bit more of an ergonomic issue, especially the deep carry ones. Because so you got Sage obviously has the same one here on the Sage 2. You see they do carry quite close to the back of the knife, and then generally when you're squeezing a knife, the back of the knife is actually going to be wearing the brunt of a fair bit of palm fat. So I do find sometimes, over repetitive and strenuous use, which I have put this through because I've done a cut test with it, well, not with this one, but with this one, which is the same pattern, you do notice that there's two hot spots, one there and one there. They do kind of start to dig in just a little bit. So it's kind of a choice you have to make. You can go either, you can choose to have the clip start lower, and so you've got a nice flat point for your palm to sit on, but it carries a bit far out, or you can go clip goes deeper, and it's really, in my opinion, it's about even keel, really, but it's not the end of the world either way. It's minor inconveniences with lots of these knives that are really excellently made. So there you go. So yeah, there's really not a great deal to dislike about this knife. I guess the one thing is that it's a little bit dull. Yeah, maybe it's just because it's in a series of 5 knives that look exactly the same. Don't know what it is about it. It just seems to be almost like, it's like when a group of people will write a song and they write it to be pleasing, like crowd pleasing and popular and memorable, but it's kind of lacks a bit of that vision maybe, or it's just a bit safe or something about it, and there's a sense to that here. This is very non-tangible critique we're going into right now, but it is really all I've got, because functionally, fit and finish wise, ergonomically, materials wise, this is a really good knife. It's just, I would say, I like it the same way that I like the American Lawman as a hard use knife. It's not particularly entertaining, but it's really practical and really it's just a compelling choice if you just want something to carry and use. This is the knife I would probably recommend to anyone who just wants to buy one nice pocket knife for someone, and that person may either never use it or they might use it all the time and it just becomes their pocket knife, assuming they won't get the sickness that I get and flood their lives with dozens of other ones. This is probably the best one I would say to get, because I would have usually said the Benchmade 940, but there is a slight issue with the axis locks that you can sometimes get. I feel terrible. I recommended someone get a 940 and they got one, and their Infinity, or not the Infinity spring, the Omega spring, it gave in on them and it came off, and it actually busted out part of the it was like poking out the hole, and they was gripping it and they're like, what's the wire poking in? What's that wire from? And I was like, oh shit, that's the spring. That's not a common story, but this has kind of got the same, got the same enjoyable, opening and safe opening as well as an axis locking knife does. But the compression lock's just a little bit more fail safe, a bit more foolproof, a bit more reliable perhaps. And once you get the hang of it, people are going to be like, at first, when you give someone a knife and they try and close it but once you get it, it's so simple, so simple. So yeah, a really good knife to just suggest to someone who may never get another knife but wants to get one good one. It's like when I go and buy, like most other bits, if I go and buy a hammer, right? Some dudes, my dad's got about probably 7 different hammers. I'll just get one hammer, but I want a really nice one. So I'll look into it and I'll, so you end up getting like a nice Estwing hammer or something, whatever it is. It's a bit like that. I think this is a great knife for people to sort of just recommend on to people. If you're a collector like me, it might not quite have that factor, that real sort of keepability. I don't know if I'll keep this or not. It's probably a technically superior knife to a lot of these other ones. Like, it's probably superior to this. It's, at least in terms of design and usability, and it's probably superior to the Delica, and it's probably superior to the T1 here as well. Like, in terms of, the T1's got a ball bearing pivot that you need to Loctite when you first get it, otherwise the knife goes really badly uncentered. Like, it's really well executed, but just a little bit. You know what? I've got space in my life for one knife that's fairly dull but really practical. I'm not sure if I have the space for two. So that's the only real criticism I would level at this one. A comparison video of this and the Para 3 coming up, which I don't feel the same way about. I feel the Para 3 has that bit of extra something, but we will wait until that comparison video to get into that, I believe. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video, which is going to be the comparison between these two. Get psyched. Bye now.